I'm Dr. Alex Loyd, and we're talking about the spiritual laws of nature. And right now we're in a series, the top 10 spiritual laws as determined by our listeners over the last 16 years. And these are in no particular order. But the one today I call availability bias. You have a function in your brain that I believe likely is malfunctioning and keeping you from your best life. Have you ever been around someone that's just, horribly negative about everything and everybody? You ever been around somebody like that? You will lie to get away from that person because it feels so bad being with them. I mean, you will. You'll tell a lie. Oh, I forgot. I've got to go get a haircut. Because you'll just feel like, I can't take this anymore. I've got to get away from this person. Are you one of those people? Or on a lesser scale, how does it feel to be around someone who's just negative a whole lot or quite a bit of the time? Or are you that person that is negative maybe a little too much of the time, even if not all the time? Well, did you ever ask yourself why? Why is that person so negative? How come I can't be more positive? Well, they've just discovered a new brain function, and they've named it availability bias, and it may be at the bottom of why those things happen. So let's talk about it for just a few minutes. Typically, when people come in to talk to me over the last 30 years, and they tell me what their problem is, and in this case, if they're saying, I just can't seem to live the positive life I want to live. I can't get myself to do what I need to do. I can't get myself to stop doing these things. It is difficult for me to be positive. I'm not sure why. But when I ask them, well, what do you think? Virtually 100% of them name their current circumstances. Well, it's because my wife does this, or it's because the economy did that, or my boss or work is this, or I've got this pain all the time, or something. They blame it on their circumstances. The problem is it's virtually never the circumstances. Now, yeah, maybe one time in 1,000 or one time in 10,000, but typically, it's not the circumstances. The thing they discovered in the brain, they named it availability bias. And it's very interesting because what it is it's a natural tendency for your mind to lean to the negative. That's number one. And number two, to take things out of context. For instance, you're watching the news and someone's house got broken into 20 miles away from you. And all of a sudden you're concerned that there's going to be robberies all over the place, and you may very well be one of them, and we need to take some steps, okay? When statistically, the chances are probably better of you getting hit by lightning than being burglarized because of that burglary, okay? It's taken out of context rather than saying, well, yeah, that happened, but that didn't mean at all that I'm going to get robbed. I mean, that's 20 miles away from here. And we haven't been robbed in 20 years, and this is a safe neighborhood, and our neighbors look out for each other. No, people don't tend to think of any of those things. It's just instantly when they see robbery, a fear thing comes up in them, and they may take it out of context and become fearful of a robbery. But always to lean slightly to the negative. Dr. Steven Pinker, a psychologist, is one of the leaders in the availability bias research and discovery and describing what it is and all that. I believe he wrote a best-selling book, and I'd like to read a section from an article from USA Today, October 23rd, 2018, written by Jeff Stiebel, USA Today. And I rarely read in these things, but I have to read this. This is so good. The view from the freeway near my Los Angeles home was apocalyptic this summer. Thick black clouds from nearby fire stations stretched across the sky, and ashes covered vehicles as we were all brought to a standstill by a multi-car accident. It was also close to 110 degrees, and I thought of the firefighters in their heavy gear working tirelessly to get California's many wildfires under control. The world has gone to hell in a handbasket, I found myself muttering. Whether you live near a natural disaster or not, it's easy to have a pessimistic, and in light of availability bias, negative. It's easy to have a pessimistic outlook these days. Politics, global warming, harassment, prejudice, disease and famine, racial issues, health issues, all off the charts. And Flint, Michigan still has dirty water. Kids are addicted to video games. Millennials are still living with their parents. We don't know our neighbors anymore, and crime seems to be on the rise. At least, still reading, that's the narrative most of us believe. A Pew Research study from last year showed the majority of Americans feel that life in the United States was better 50 years ago. Psychologist Steven Pinker looked at similar studies around the world and found the majority of Earth's inhabitants, not just us here in the U.S., feel the world is getting worse. Yet, these feelings simply do not mesh with reality. The world is far better than it was at any other time in history. Consider some of the facts. The average life expectancy is way up. Child mortality is way down. Famine and hunger rates have virtually collapsed. Economic output per person is up across the world, and extreme poverty is way down. It was reported recently that more than half of the world's population is now middle class or wealthier. You ever thought about that? Imagine that, and where we were 50 years, 100 years ago. Half of the world's population lives at middle class or better. Inequality has decreased around the globe. Now, that was before this racial thing, but I still think that's getting better. The inequality versus all and fair justice, all that. There are fewer wars happening now than at any point in human history, and nations are trending in that direction. Violence is down worldwide, including rape and domestic abuse and murder. This is even true for notoriously brutal places such as Mexico, where violence rates are a fifth of where they were a century ago. To top it off, our quality of life is better. We spend more time with our children, less time in the office, less time doing housework than at any point in the last 50 years. And even the poorest of us have more spending money. You can get all these data facts checked, and it tells where to get them checked. Part of the reason that we do this, that our beliefs are way different from the facts, they have discovered, is the availability bias, a newly discovered function in your brain. When we see negative news reports, we don't put it in context. Instead, a report in a murder in the town next door makes us think killings are common, even though we can only name one example. We evolve that way because paying attention to potential dangers is necessary for survival. So, basically, what does that mean? It means our mind, as far as looking at the truth and leading us down a path of truth, has not evolved, it has devolved. And we are way, way, way more negative with our feelings, thoughts, actions, behaviors, beliefs than we should be. Virtually to a person. There's almost no exception to this. Okay? Well, Availability bias is not malfunctioning. It's working correctly. It's designed to lean us slightly to the negative for safety purposes. But the reason it's starting to take all these things out of context is something different. That's from a malfunction in our memories, where the latest studies say that up to 50% of what we believe has happened in our life from our memories simply is not the truth. Our memories are in error. In fact, Scientific American said it would be more accurate to call them illusions than memories based on the definition of those words. All right? So we have devolved to a place where we are extremely negative people when we don't need to be, and it's all because of a malfunction that needs to be fixed. All right, so here's the three issues here, I believe. Number one, your unconscious mind has a natural lean to the negative. All right, so you need to be aware of that and compensate for it. Number two, your unconscious mind prioritizes negative memories over positive ones. So there's a double negative. It leans to the negative with everything, but in all the memories about your birthday, it tends to prioritize the most negative one as the most important. In all of the memories about your marriage, it tends to prioritize the most negative one as the most important. So those are the ones that are activated the most, send a negative signal to the brain, and keep us in fight or flight. So number one, lean to the negative. Number two, prioritize the negative memories in every area of your life over the positive ones. And number three, the number one mandate of the unconscious mind is survival, not happiness and health. And it will sacrifice happiness and health for the sake of survival. Okay? So you need to be aware that all of these things are in you. Okay? Now, let me give you one last example and then I'll close this up and tell you what I think we need to do about it. In the Garden of Eden story, there is one thing that has the definition of die or kill, and that was eating fruit from a certain tree. But nothing else had the definition of die and kill. One thing. All right, let's move forward a few centuries or millennium to the Middle Ages. No, let's go to cavemen first. Cavemen, there was probably 6 or 7 things that had the definition of die or kill. A dinosaur about to eat me, not finding any water to drink, not finding food, some natural calamity, or some other animal may be hurting me, or my next door neighbor clubbing me over the head for my food. So maybe 6 or 7 things that had the definition of die and kill. Move up to the Middle Ages, and there's all sorts of people dying from the flu, from the Black Plague. There was not any sort of reliable law and order, so people were just killed all the time in fights and stuff like that. Maybe 50, 60 things with the definition of die and kill. Let's move to today. Ladies and gentlemen, in my experience today, the average person has hundreds of things with the definition of die and kill. It's starting to rain when you're out and don't have a rain jacket, and you know you're going to get soaking wet. A letter from the IRS coming before you even open it to see if it may be a refund. The news, something happening on the news. We already talked about that. Crime happening somewhere else. It's endless. How many times do you think, oh, if I don't make this light, I'm just going to die. I'm already late for a meeting. There's that word, die. Oh, if I don't get this account and get this bonus, it's just going to kill me. There's that word, kill. Now, we're not thinking literal, but our unconscious mind and heart are thinking die and kill literal. So every time you think that or something close to it, it activates those prioritized most negative memories and causes you to lean to the negative, and in this case, way too much, because your definitions are wrong. Okay? If the letter from the IRS did not have any kind of a die or kill definition on it, physical, mental, emotional, nothing. No, it's a letter from the IRS. It may be good, may be bad. It may be I'm being audited, but everything's going to turn out okay because I haven't done anything. But instead, IRS and I'm in fight or flight. Or it starts to rain and I'm in fight or flight. Or someone cuts me off in traffic and I'm in fight or flight. It's supposed to happen once or twice a year for 15 minutes and then be gone. The latest research says it's happening 5 to 30 times a day in almost every one of us, because we are going to the negative automatically, availability bias, and 50% of our memories are in error, and the 50% that are in error are negatives, and the negatives are prioritized over the positives by the unconscious mind. So the lies are the ones that are prioritized. So how in the world do we break that cycle? Well, I think the first of all is awareness. Be aware that you have availability bias in you and compensate for it. Number two, think about different areas of your life and find the lies that you're believing. Okay? It may not be the facts of what happened. It may be your interpretation of what happened. Because my dad hit me when I was 10 and said I was never going to amount to anything, interpretation, I'm never going to amount to anything. Well, the facts were right. The interpretation's totally wrong. In fact, it had nothing to do with me. It was all about him and him being afraid of dying over a heart attack. Okay? So, a lot of times it's the interpretation, but find the memories in different areas of your life where you have a wrong interpretation, or ask your spouse or your parents or whatever and see if you can find those, and then intentionally believe the truth about that with a correct positive interpretation in order to offset availability bias some. Okay? I would do trilogy, at least one a day. I would do the vagus breathing. I would turn it into a prayer. I would ask for dying grace at dying time over this issue whenever it comes up. Okay? I would pray without ceasing, all of those things. And I believe you can heal the errors in your heart, that 50% that are wrong. Those can be healed. And then be aware of availability bias, that it'll naturally swing you to the negative or cause you to take things out of context. So force the context. Okay, I can't think or feel this until I bring proper context to this. That was 30 miles away. There's no evidence at all I'm in any sort of danger of being robbed right now. So let me bring context to it. And then when you heal the 50% negative memories with all of those things I talked about, then you can simply make the best decision and not be a puppet on a string, thinking negative thoughts, feeling negative feelings, doing negative actions because of the errors and malfunctions inside you. Fix that stuff, be aware of availability bias, and start making the love and truth-based decision every time. And it'll dramatically change your life. Have a great day.